Okay. The next force, or the last force we're going to look at, besides selection, mutation, genetic drift, non-random mating, is gene flow. And gene flow can be either, what it is alleles moving from one population to another, and it can either be adults, diploid individuals moving from one population, bringing in different alleles that they have that the next population doesn't, moving over to the population like a flock of birds or something, interbreeding, and that introduces new genes into that population. And it can also go the other way, of course, from the second population, individuals migrating the other direction. It can also include, so individuals, here's some examples. These are penguins moving from one place to another. Monarch butterflies migrating long distances from North America to Mexico. Probably wildebeests on the Serengeti. Human migration. Bunch of different birds perhaps migrating. And then we also have gametes, or seeds in this case. So these are diploid seeds, right? That's a diploid seed, that's coconut. And then we have pollen, more pollen. And this could be sperm or eggs being released from coral. Looks more like sperm, but could be eggs too. They release them simultaneously. Okay. So, again, we have migration or dispersal, either one, and that accounts for gene flow from one population to the next. So movement of alleles from one population to another. Like mutation, it introduces new alleles into a population. Gene flow reduces genetic differences and homogenizes between those populations. In other words, each population, if there's equal gene flow, there's alleles going in both directions. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so here we have time 1 and time 1. Okay, we have two populations that are completely homozygous. That means the same allele. In this case, red is A1. The other population is blue is A2. Now these were genotypes. Let's say not gametes, but actual genotypes of adult individuals. It'd be A1, A1, or A1, or sorry, A1, A1, or A2, A2. It could just be gametes, of course, if it's pollen or semen or eggs or whatever, because that's haploid. Anyway, let's make believe that it's a bunch of birds. And actually, let's make believe it's a bunch of fish. No. Okay. Oh, I know what we'll do. Okay. So, we've got birds on two islands going back and forth. Okay, they couldn't do it before. Well, see, I don't know. We need some kind of barrier. Let's say these two populations on either side of a mountain, they wouldn't disperse across the mountain. Over time, the mountain gets eroded away. These populations change, but it's all one. It's two different populations, and then they finally there's migration route between the two populations. Now we're in time 2. And you can see that we've got a red population going over here, and blue population migrating over here, right? And eventually, over time, if there's equal migration, the two populations will basically merge and create two subpopulations with lots of gene flow, and they'll all have about the same allele frequencies if you give it enough time. Okay. Now, let's say you have a population over a large area, and you actually put a barrier between, let's say, one side or another. That will be restricting gene flow. It will restrict migration so there's no more. Because there's no exchange of genes, populations will actually differentiate, and there will be genetic divergence. And then finally, a population under this scenario that could end up in two different species. Okay, so here's an example of it. Over 7 million years ago, or before 7 million years ago, and there was a mesa, or that was higher up at this level, and it was actually extended all the way across so that it was all one mesa. There was not this Grand Canyon. This is the Grand Canyon, by the way. And there was not this Grand Canyon there 7 million years ago. But the Colorado River, something changed its course, and 7 million years ago, it started cutting in right here at the very ridge, at the very top of the mesa, and splitting the two sides. And then eventually, a canyon was formed. Okay. It got deeper and deeper. The animals on one side of the ridge this guy, and these were all one species actually. These were a species of ground squirrel, but they were all the same species on both sides of the ridge, both sides of the mesa, because there's only one mesa. It wasn't being split. So this ground squirrel, these were found all over the place. Same thing, right? Okay. Then the river intervened. and started cutting a new canyon. And this started splitting the population of these ground squirrels. Okay, and so there might have been some ground squirrels down below, but eventually the canyon over 7 million years finally got deeper and deeper, right? And there were no ground squirrels that were down living in the bottom of the canyon now. And it would have been hard for them to migrate up the valley because of these very steep slopes, right, on both sides. Okay, so now you've got this population, and let's say you've got this population. Over those 7 million years, this formerly one population has now split into two. They look different, they act different. There's been no gene flow between them for 7 million years, or maybe a little bit less. And they've differentiated from drift, from new mutations, from all the selective force, maybe different differential selection. The south side of the Grand Canyon versus the north side, it's a plateau. It's tilted on its side a little bit, so one area has a higher elevation than the other, all that kind of stuff. And then eventually these two species, they were originally one, they are now completely differentiated. Now let's use this. We've got this species over here, and we've got this species over here, and they are now separate species.